voice.
Yeah, so
It's okay.
yeah, just introductions, right? So maybe let's all introduce ourselves, what
Okay.
we're doing, and all of that. So
Okay.
then I can introduce us well.
I will
And then
introduce her.
we talk about the businesses, what we're interested in, business we're doing, all of that.
Hallelujah. Praise God. So, we want to welcome everybody to this program. Everybody, put those down their way. So, right now we're just trying to open the floor somehow for us to introduce ourselves and say what businesses we do, what is our expectation from this program, and any other thing about business that you know. So my name is Juliet Ajedegba. I'm a member of House of Praise. I'm a member of the business support group. And so generally business has been part of me. My parents own businesses back home. They're entrepreneurs. So I worked with them in their business, so I have idea about how business works, the ups and downs of owning a business, the challenges, and the benefits. So in this part of the world, if you come when you come to this part of the world, you're being told that the best way is good to have a business. So, but then when I heard about it's good to have a business, in my mind, I'm like, no way, because of the challenges, especially that I know back home. But as time goes on, I begin to explore the how business works in Canada, and I see that it makes sense to have a business alongside your paid employment. It doesn't matter how small it is. So in my own thinking, I feel business should be something really elaborate. But a business can start from very little. You just need to have an interest in being a business owner. So yeah, and so far so good. I'm able to do one or two things in terms of business wise, and I'm hoping from this program I will be able to get more understanding of business in Canada, the ins and outs, and how to move from being a small business owner to being a big business owner. So that's me. And I will pass the mic around for us to introduce ourselves. Tell us your idea of business, your understanding of business, if you have a business going right now, and your expectation from this program. Because we have our presenter here. We want her, like we're few, so we want to get as much as we want. It doesn't matter if you have if only one person has the questions that she'll be attending to, so long you go here, you leave this place full, not not empty or half full. So I'm going to pass the mic around. So tell us your name, your understanding of business you're doing right now, what your expectation is from this program.
My name is Abidemi. So I don't have any business now. So my business now is I teach business, but I'm not a practical business practitioner. So I have idea of the concept, so I want the application. I'm actually an instructor in SAIT, School of Business. So I teach accounting, I teach finance, strategic management. I teach anything, taxation, auditing, external and internal, cost management, cost accounting. That is theory. So I want it to convert to, apart from my pay 15 days, I want to do something, right? So, and what I like here is, except from idea, it's not that I don't have ideas, but execution of the idea is the problem. So I would like, getting maybe some tips on how I can navigate from the idea to the reality. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Egosa, and hi, my name is Egosa, and I just came to learn about what's gonna happen. Not sure what's gonna happen, so I'm just want to learn. That's all.
Praise the Lord. My name is William Sudofia. So I'm an engineer by profession, a reliability engineer. So I have business overseas anyway, and done some investments. And I tried to start a business here in Canada. I think I left it at the idea stage. I almost got it registered and all that, setting up a business plan and going forward. So I think when I did some feasibility and I said, okay, let me step back and learn. So essentially what I want to walk through, my expectation from this program is those systems and tools, that I can learn and pick from and get the support systems that I can move those ideas that I have, to an executable business plan that is funded by the bank. I've done a lot of things with the bank here in Canada, so I keep going back and forth, taking loans and all of that to do some projects. So I realized that the banks, so once I believe that the approval of your business plan by the bank shows that you've done something and your business is actually one that's profitable or so. So that's really the stage. That's really what I'm looking at. What's the framework, to move that business idea to full maturation? So that's my expectation from this. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Michael. Is he speaking now? My name is Michael. I run a couple of businesses. I'm not quite sure where that stands now. No, you can use the mic. I can't really hear anything from it. Oh, it works. Okay. Yeah, I have some interest in business. I had a couple of businesses, but right now I'm completely flatline. I'm not doing anything. So just want to sample the program, see what it's all about, and see what happens, and then take it from there. My company is defunct. Everything is completely in a cold storage, so I'm kind of hibernating. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening all. My name is Joyce Besu. I'm an engineer by profession, but since I came into Canada, I've not really practiced. So I'm like, okay, when I heard of this, I said, let me come in and see. Maybe I should try business. I don't know, but I'm here today to learn some.
Hello, my name is Tony, and I'm an engineer by background as well. And with regards to experience with business, I started an online business a while ago, and that worked out okay, but it took so much of my effort. So then I stopped that and I started another one, which did a bit better. And I'm just pushing through that right now and just coming here to pretty much get some ideas on how to optimize things as well as just do it better and be more effective in the effort that I'm putting in.
Hi, my name is Imole. I have a video making business right now, but I just want to learn everything you have to say because I'm in the middle of writing a business plan for myself. I'm thinking of opening another business online. So I'm just in the middle of writing a business plan, really, and getting all the necessary information I need. Yes.
Hi, my name is Caroline. I'm a business visibility coach. I've done lots of businesses, both back home and here. And when I came here, the challenge I had was networking, because I was told that you need to know how to connect to do business in this part of the world. It was quite different from what I did back home. So that became a bit of challenge for my businesses. So I had to take my time to go learn how to do business in this part of the world, networking. So with social media, I just went online and I started searching, with internet these days, with Google these days, there are lots of information out there. So I started searching and I got myself involved with social media. And I learned the different ways to do business out there, which is like the modern way to do business, the way the businesses are run right now. So on getting these informations and having this knowledge with me, I felt that, wow, it's not good to go to the grave with this lots of information in my hands and in my head. So I decided to go out there to share the information with other immigrant women that will be having the same challenge, because I know that lots of immigrant women out there, they have this challenge of building a business in a foreign land. So that's what I do. I teach how to build your business, how to attract your customers to you on social media. But my expectation today is, I want to learn still learn more. I've done lots of training here as well, but what I want to get out of here today is how to also run businesses offline. So I'll be in a better position to talk to my clients when they come to me on how to do their businesses both off and online.
Sorry, I'm kind of like lost. I don't know what you guys are doing. I just came in, so to have the microphone is completely way off.
No, okay, GK. So what we're doing is brief introductions of ourselves, our interest in business, and expectation from the seminar today. So.
Okay. My name is Ejike. The expectation today, basically, it's I just want to learn. I'm here with open mind. So I want to assimilate as much as possible, but at the end of the day, I want to live here with a better understanding of how to not just create a business, but see it to fruition. Something that could, even if it takes 5-10 years to build, but lay the foundation and see it grow from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to start. So I'll start first by introducing our guest speaker today. She's Meredith Parrish from Business Link. It's a senior business facilitator. And what's interesting about it is, I really want to say I appreciate your accepting our invitation to come. I just got in touch with the business director of Business Link and said, we have this presentation in the church. Would you like to come give the presentation? And they gladly accepted. So I want to commend, on behalf of the business committee of the church, commend you and your organization for that. So, and we are supposed to also have Juliet Cruz from the BDC. Oh, she's here. Oh. Thank you very much, Juliet. So Juliet is a senior account manager with BDC, which is the Business Development Bank, something. Yeah, so Juliet is going to speak to us on business financing, which is a very critical component of business. So at this point in time, I'll like to yield the floor and let Juliet take us through. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a logistical question. Do I have a clicker or anything for moving the slides? So I'll just let you know when to just do like this. I'll just pretend I have a clicker. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing a little bit about yourselves and why you're here today. That really kind of helps me, of course, in guiding the next, I guess, hour and 15 minutes or so that I have with you. With that said, though, if you have anything that you don't feel like is being covered that you want to talk about, or if you just sort of want to have a discussion that's outside of this, by all means, feel free to interrupt me at any time. So a little bit about myself. I work for an organization called, actually, can we move the slide forward? It might need to go in full screen mode. Oh, it's the scrolly one. Okay, that's fine. So so I'm just going to talk a little bit first about Business Link and myself and my role with Business Link and another organization called Momentum that I'm also employed by. Then I'll take you through some of the sort of characteristics that we really look for in entrepreneurs, some of the things that typically make a successful entrepreneur. Given that your introductions, most of you are at least have either a little bit or a lot of experience with entrepreneurship already, so you may consider yourselves tried and true and tested successful entrepreneurs or people who have that entrepreneurial spirit. We'll go through a little bit of ideation and market research. So that sort of involves the conceptualization of your idea. So we sort of say, okay, you've decided that your personal characteristics lend themselves well to being an entrepreneur, your life lends itself well to being an entrepreneur. You decide that you want to be an entrepreneur, and it's like, okay, well now what kind of business do I start, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that process and some of the market research that goes into deciding whether that's a good or a feasible business idea, and it sounds like we have a bit of an expert in that amongst us. We'll talk about business planning, some various business plan templates, what you might need to go into it. Business registration, so what are sort of the practical steps that you need to actually start this business. And then just some of the things to consider after you've launched the business and some various helpful resources. And then I'll hand it over to Juliette as well to talk about the financing component from BDC's perspective. Okay. Can we move it forward? Okay, forward one more. Sorry about that. I thought that this would be a presentation, like a PowerPoint clicker presentation. So how many of you have heard of Business Link before? No one? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're a nonprofit. We're here as an entrepreneurial resource. Our whole mandate is to help you start your business. So we've been around for just over 20 years, since 1996. We're funded jointly through the provincial and the federal government. So federally, we're part of something that's called the Canada Business Network. And so there's a sort of a representative center in each of the provinces across Canada. And we're, of course, the representative center for Alberta. One more, please. Thanks. So in terms of the services we offer, primarily when people come to access us, they're looking for one-on-one support and guidance. So you can access us over the phone or by email. We have a number of different ways that you can contact us. We'll do Skype meetings with you. Our main office is in Edmonton, and then we have 4 of us staff members who work in Calgary at different locations. So in Edmonton, you can walk in and just have a face-to-face conversation with us whenever you want. In Calgary, it's a little bit more tricky. You need to make sure you make an appointment because we're not always there. So we don't want you to come in and not have anyone to talk to, so you'll just have to make sure that you email us ahead of time. We provide market research. So through the Canada Business Network, we have access to a number of market research databases. So a lot of people will use that service when they're writing their business plan and they need to do some sort of industry analysis, or they need information on their market or their competitors or their customers in their area, those sorts of things. We do have a team who specializes in regulatory and licensing information. We have an Ask an Expert program, so that's every Wednesday afternoon. We alternate between having an accountant and a lawyer come in. It's sort of and they will both specialize in small business. It's a good program if you have legal and accounting questions about your business, but aren't quite ready to hire a lawyer or an accountant full-time in your business. So, like I said, that's every Wednesday afternoon. We alternate an accountant and a lawyer. We do lots of networking events. We have Biz Connections events, webinars, that sort of thing. So if you're looking to network with other entrepreneurs in the community, you're welcome to attend those. And we do offer as well specialized support for Indigenous communities. So we have a few staff members who are dedicated to that role, and they'll go out into the rural communities and do some sort of community economic development in those areas. Thank you. So in terms of our target audience, we'll help any entrepreneur. So whether you're sort of just starting and you decide, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I'm not really sure where to go or what to do or what I want from that, we'll have those conversations with you all the way up to, you know, I've been in business for 20 years and I really know what I'm doing, but I maybe have just one or two things that I'd like support on. So we won't turn anyone away. Having said that, where we really find that our niche is anywhere from the pre-startup to kind of the first 3 years of business. That's where we really find that we can add the most value to your process. So that looks like you know, having conversations about, you know, what some feasible business ideas might be, what you might need to have in place, whether it's a good thing for you in your life right now, to early stage where we consider, okay, you have an idea, you've decided, yes, this is what I want to do, you're writing a business plan, and maybe we'll help you put that together or provide market research for that, all the way into ongoing support for sort of that first 3 years of business. Thank you. So we don't do this alone. And I think I'd really like everyone to take away today that there are tons and tons of supports available for you in your sort of startup and business development process, right? And so we don't want to duplicate any services, of course, that any other organization is offering. So we partner with a lot of different organizations to really provide the best, most efficient service. So these are just a few of them. So Momentum, for example, I myself have sort of a 50-50 partnership role with Momentum. How many of you have heard of Momentum before? Okay, yeah, so I work in the business development department of Momentum as well, and so that's kind of one area where we've found there's like a lot of synergy for Business Link, is because then I can provide sort of one-on-one guidance and market research for those in Momentum programs as well. Futurepreneur Canada provides financing. We have a staff member located at all the AMA offices, which is the registry office, of course, where you would register your business. The Rural Alberta Business Centers we partner with, and we also have a shared resource with Alberta Women Entrepreneurs. Okay, so before I move on, any questions about Business Link, who we are? I do have, if you're ever wanting to, I can give you my personal card too, but if you're ever wanting, if anyone in your congregation missed the event and you want more information or anything like that, I can give you those, or you can pass them out, or whatever you'd like to do with them. It's just like a little bit more information about Business Link and some of our services. So now that we've covered that, we'll get right into the entrepreneurship component that's really focused on you. So when we're talking about characteristics of an entrepreneur, I mean, and I guess because some of you have already started businesses, right? And so you've already been through this process. What are some of the characteristics that you found really helped you in being successful in your entrepreneurial experiences? Or what are some of the things that you felt like you maybe could have used a little bit more help and support in? Yeah. Risk, yeah. So being comfortable with risk taking is important. Yeah. Consistency? So being really driven or committed to it? Yeah. Yeah. Passion, absolutely, right? It really has to be something you love, because of course there's lots of ups and downs with entrepreneurship. You have to be kind of ready and willing to ride those waves out. Other ideas? Your skill set, right. So important, I guess your skill set in terms of operating a business in general, and also making sure that you understand kind of the industry that you're going into, right? So maybe if you're starting an engineering consulting business, right, which I know we had, I think, 3 or 4 entrepreneurs in the, or engineers in the audience, right? So if you're starting an engineering consulting company, really making sure that you have that technical expertise to do so. A support system, of course, that's so important, right? Having a network of people who can support you in this. Having a supportive family can really help too, right? Because maybe your hours aren't going to be, super consistent. Maybe you're going to have to work some really long hours. So having people around you who can support you in your vision and kind of help you fill in those gaps in your life is really important. So you're probably ahead of a lot of people with this church community already, right? Is having that kind of support system and network around you, but really sort of taking stock of all of the personal assets that you have in your life and how they might feed into your success. So sorry, you can move forward if you like. So you guys talked to almost all of these, so that's really great. And then if we go forward one more, we'll just talk about some of the individual analysis. So what I've brought is just something we use for, I'll pull it out here. Not this one. This, not that one either. There it is. Sorry, I'm just going to put this like down. Easier with two hands. So what I brought, and I'll give that to you. Most of you, again, because you've kind of had some sort of experience or dabbling in entrepreneurship already, you've kind of already thought about these things. But for someone who's new to entrepreneurship, kind of wondering what the lifestyle might be like, some of the things you need to consider, using a sheet like this can kind of help you take stock of some of your personal assets, right? And thinking about, do these lend themselves to successful entrepreneurship? So we can scroll if we like. And one more. Good, and this is just a tool that maybe Juliet might be familiar with. So just another a note to say that this is just kind of a very simplified one that BusinessLink uses. With that said, though, there's a number of different self-assessment tools that you can use online. So this is one that I've just linked to. So you should have, feel free to distribute this however you like within the group, and if you want to distribute it, you're welcome to click on all the links and use the self-assessment that BDC has as well, if you're kind of thinking, okay, is this the right decision for me? Thank you. I think this is just another kind of good thing to consider when you're starting a business, is there's a difference, right, between being self-employed and being an entrepreneur. So does anyone have any sort of idea on the differences there? No? So I just think it's, I find a very big difference both in outcomes and attitudes of people who have sort of a self-employment mentality and people who have an entrepreneurship mentality, right? So if you're self-employed, you own a job. So maybe you contract for a company, right? And so you need to set up your own sort of separate legal entity and take care of all that yourself. But you really just own that job with that one company, and they pay you all the money, and then you take care of all the administration of that within yourself. That's owning a job, right? And then as an entrepreneur, on the other hand, what you're owning is a system. So you own this separate entity that's able to sort of snowball and generate revenue for you, right? So as someone who's self-employed, you don't own a system. You're not gonna, that's something that has a limited capacity, right? Whereas as an entrepreneur, there is unlimited capacity to grow if you own that system, right? Because then it gets to a certain point where that system starts operating for you and making money for you and growing for you. Thank you. Okay, yeah, so now we're kind of at the point where we've just sort of very quickly gone through some of the personal characteristics, some things you might consider before you decide, yes, entrepreneurship is a good idea for me, that sort of thing. So now say we've all decided, yes, this is exactly what I want to do, this is the piece of my life that's been missing, this is wonderful, and we decide, okay, now we're ready to jump into entrepreneurship. But what kind of business should I start, right? What sort of business might be feasible in my market? What are people looking for? What is my value proposition? So I introduced this first as just sort of a a simplified visual way to think about, what's a good business for you to start. So it's sort of a three-way Venn diagram that talks about what you love, what you're good at, and what the world needs. So that first kind of component of it, we're sort of thinking within ourselves, right? So what do we love to do? What are we good at, right? And lots of people, they have a really, they have an easy time coming up with that, right? So someone might say, oh, okay, well, I love making miniatures, and I'm really good at making miniatures, so I want to start a miniature making business. And so, but then we need to bring in that third piece of it, of what the world needs, right? And that kind of component of it is where a lot of the market research and the feasibility analysis comes from. Because it's like, okay, you want to make these miniatures, but is anyone willing to buy them? Is anyone willing to buy them at the price that you need to sell them to make this a profitable business for you, right? Is anyone willing to buy them at a price that makes this worth your time? And so that's kind of the piece that we often spend a lot of time with people on, is just really validating the market for this product, right? And so when you think about your value proposition, kind of part of that process is, okay, so you say, what value do these miniatures have in people's life? And maybe it's, it makes their dollhouse look better. But then you have to ask, okay, who are my customers? And have my customers actually said that they want this, right? Have they said that they want this in the way that I'm delivering it? So this is kind of where this ideation and market research stage of the whole business comes in. So if we can scroll down. Thank you. So one place I would actually encourage you to look is, has anyone been on the Calgary Economic Development webpage? No? Okay, so if you come up with an idea for your business and you're just kind of curious where it sits in sort of the general economic environment in Calgary, I'd actually encourage you to check out the Calgary Economic Development page. They have lots of really, really good tools for different industries and what is the business climate around those industries. So I've just linked to this page just at the top there, so feel free to distribute and click around and just sort of explore what Calgary Economic Development has said are, I guess, positive and also growing industries, right? And then one more. So kind of one step further than this ideation is the market research component of it. So how many of you have completed market research for a business plan? One? So those of us, others of us who have owned businesses, did we go in without a business plan? Yeah? You wrote a business plan? Oh, and you were able to do it without any market research? You did the market research too, okay. Yeah, so, yeah, you're absolutely right. So that's one thing that makes market research more challenging, right? Is when you don't have, when your business is really niche, or when it's like a very specific activity or specific industry, right? Because there's primary and secondary market research, which we'll talk about. And so secondary, of course, being research that you get from a secondary source. So say you go to a website that has statistics on it, and you're getting those statistics from that website, that's secondary research. Whereas primary research, you're going out and you're actually conducting all of that. So you're doing the surveys, you're doing the questionnaires, you're holding focus groups, and you're asking those populations directly. That's primary market research. And so we find when people are in really niche industries, like it sounds like you were, they have to do a whole lot more primary market research because the secondary market research just doesn't exist, right? And so unfortunately, the process of market research can be a lot more tedious sometimes for businesses that are in those niche industries. Yeah, sorry, we can scroll. So these are just some of the questions you'll ask yourself when you're doing the market research component of it. So does your idea serve an unserved need? So that's important, right? And kind of the key word there, of course, is unserved. So is there a gap in the market? Is there room in the market for you to come in with this business, right? So if you see other successful businesses in the industry and you say, okay, well, they're successful, I should be successful too if I start this, right? Well, you have to think, how am I going to capture the portion of the market that I need, right? How am I going to take clients for them? Or are there still potential customers who are unserved, right? Do you understand the trends influencing your industry? So really important. we probably don't want to start a business fixing VHS players, right? Because we all know that VHS players, they're not being used anymore, they're getting less and less common. 5 years from now, there's probably gonna be no VHS players left, right? So really understanding whether the opportunities in this industry are growing or are they shrinking. Do you know what kind of people or businesses will want to buy your product or service? So that really speaks to your target market. So for those of us who maybe operate businesses already or have a specific idea, have we thought about our target market? Yeah? So what's yours? Yeah? Okay. And so how did you arrive at that conclusion? Did you like survey businesses and find that that's where there was a demand, or? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we really just encourage people to like validate, right? So you can kind of come up with this very specific or like picture in your head about what your ideal customer looks like, and then say, okay, how am I going to prove that to myself, right? And of course, do you understand your advantages over the competition? So is there something you're able to offer your customers that they're not able to get anywhere else? Or what is their reason for choosing you? Are your prices lower? Are you kinder and friendlier to them? Is it better quality? All of these things that competition competes on. And then, so in exploring those questions, some of the things you'll discover, of course, industry trends. You'll want to know the size of your industry, understand your target market, what are their preferences, how do they prefer to be served, and of course, learning about your competition and whether there's any opportunities in that market for growth. And so I spoke to this a little bit already, but in conducting your market research, there's two kind of primary components, right? So there's the primary research and the secondary research. The primary, of course, being you're talking directly to people. So if it's businesses that you're targeting, talking to them, asking them, what do they want? What would it take for them to hire you? If they have hired you, is there anything I can do to make my service better? And secondary research, you're looking at industry trends, information off Calgary economic development, for example, would be a secondary research source. And then within each of those two categories, we have, of course, the qualitative and the quantitative data. So, I mean, the names kind of speak a little bit for themselves, right? So qualitative data being things involving people's feelings, perceptions, any psychographic data, opinions, beliefs. Quantitative data being numbers, right? So whether they're expressed in percentages, in numbers and ratios, in growth number, that sort of thing. Thank you. So, did anyone, when they were starting their business, did anyone do any research? Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Service or product here, would you sell it? What does the market want? So I don't know if that falls into secondary research or is still part of primary research. So for instance, we have within our niche what we call the the African markets and all that, and you go talk to the operators there and feel, okay, they already have target customers and all that. So you think, okay, is this something, if I bring this, would you sell it on my behalf and all that? Is that part of market research or?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's part of that's super, super valuable primary market research, right? And so these are just some of the methods of primary research, and the links will take you to kind of more details about how you might go about conducting those sorts of things. But like with that said, informal conversations are still great, right? So it's one of the ways I recommend people do research often if they've already started their business and they're looking to grow. So say you're selling, say you make baked goods and you're selling them at a farmer's market or something like that, right? And so it's a very small business. It might be, supplementary income or sort of on the side, and you're looking to grow that business. Well, what better way to get information about your business than just having conversations with your customers, right? Because they're already engaged with you. So right there, you know already that they're your target market because they're approaching you and they're already purchasing from you, and you've already established a relationship with them, right? So they're going to be more than happy to have that conversation with you. Sometimes when I talk to people and try and really pump them up to do their market research, I sense a little bit of apprehension because people are nervous, of course, to approach people kind of who they haven't had any interaction with, or they're afraid of bugging people, or maybe they're afraid of that people won't respond and those sort of things. So interacting with people who have already interacted with you and interacted with your business can be a really good way to get information that's sort of a little bit softer, right? So it doesn't have to be this big, long, complicated, very structured process, as long as the information that you're getting is valuable. Thank you. Oh, these are just a few other methods. So this is, I guess, kind of more of a step back approach to getting information is, say you are currently operating out of your home and you want to move into a commercial location. Say you have 2 locations in mind, just go observe what's going on in those two locations, right? Who's walking by? How long are they spending there? What other businesses are they going into? Are they the people that you'd want to engage in your business? Test marketing is another way that some people will get sort of an idea of whether there's a demand for their product. So this might involve selling on a smaller scale. So for example, say you have decided that your dream is to own your bakery. Maybe selling at the farmer's market initially is kind of your first step into that, right? So you're seeing, you have a market, you're getting feedback on your product, you're able to change your product, you're able to develop new products, and it's kind of your stepping stone to that end goal. And then of course, working or volunteering in the industry. So it's absolutely okay if you've worked in an industry for 20 years, but worked as an employee, and now you're just starting your own business. It's completely valid to use all of the things that you've learned in being involved in that industry and so long as sort of additional proof in your market research. Scroll down. So that's sort of the primary market research side. The next few slides, they're a little bit, I've put them here as resources, but I don't think we'll go over all of them in depth. So what I've done is I've just linked to tons and tons of secondary market research sources for you. So the first thing you'll want to do if you're doing secondary research is find a NAICS code. So NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification. All industries in North America have a NAICS code attached with them. So it's how the statistical agencies will classify your business, how they decide their statistics. So if they say there are this number of businesses in oil and gas, the way that they've decided those businesses are in oil and gas is through this NAICS code. So it's based on a hierarchy. So what that means is they're anywhere from 2 to 6 digits, and the 6-digit NAICS code are the most specific, and the 2-digit NAICS codes are the most broad. So I just put some examples up here. So 448120, for example, women's clothing stores. 44 might be like all retail stores, for example, right? So as you add digits onto the end, it gets more and more specific. The 0 at the end is really just a placeholder. So 44812 is the same thing as 448120. So what I'd encourage you all to do is find the NAICS code for the type of business that you are looking to start, and then you're able to use that NAICS code and plug it into if you just want to go through. So these are all freely available resources online that you can use to get information for your business. So if we can scroll a little bit more. So I've just separated them into industry information. The financial performance data tool is really great. It'll let you know how other businesses are doing in the industry. It gives you a a breakdown of the balance sheet and the operating costs and all that for different industries. And then one more. And then the target market. So we talked a little bit about the target market. I did also bring just sort of a sheet to prompt you about your target market. So on one side, so do we want to just pass them back? Thank you. So on one side, it's just if you're selling to businesses, and on the other side is if you're selling to consumers, individuals. So just sort of some questions that you should be asking yourself when you're trying to define your target market. Further on. And then just some links to information about consumers as well. And one more. Thank you. And one more. Oh, business information, some other sources. Good. So that's all of those links are just sort of information that you can use on your own. So say you come away from this session and you're really excited to start your own business, and you decide you want to write your business plan right away, and you need some market research to populate it. I'd encourage you to start with those links and just see what information you can gather from it. When we talk to people about the market research process, sort of as a whole, we often encourage people to start with the secondary research, right? So that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit. So information that's already been collected for you, that's been synthesized, that's sort of available for you to access. And then take that information that you've accessed from those secondary sources and think about, okay, what am I missing, right? What information do I still need to know in order to make informed decisions in my business? And from there, that's when you can think, okay, how can I use primary market research methods to fill in those gaps? So for a lot of people, they'll find there's a lot of secondary information available on industry trends, for example, on businesses, on markets. Less information maybe on your specific target market, your consumers, the specific geographical area that you might be in, right? Because a lot of the secondary information is for broad geographies. So that's sort of where the secondary or the primary market research might come in to sort of lend a hand and really buff out the information that you have. So are there any questions, first of all, about market research? I know for a lot of people it's not the most exciting part of starting a business, but it's really, really important. So,
other than the tools and the support systems you've showed us, what specific support would Business Link give to any one of us who want to actually do the market research? How would
Yeah, that's a good question. So Business Link helps with secondary market research. So how our process works, it's all free. How our process works is you would email one of us. You would say, hey, I'm interested in some assistance with the market research part of my business. We'd send you a questionnaire. The questionnaire has about 5 questions in it. It's just really to get it so that we have a really, really good understanding of what you're doing, where you are, just all the information we have to give you really specific information. And then we'll take that questionnaire, have a look through our databases, pull anything that's relevant for you, and send it back to you in an email. We'll also, if we're aware of any source of information that's publicly available that we might think that you haven't come across yet, we'll also send you that. So we usually spend, market research requests, we usually spend between an hour or 2 hours to kind of pull that relevant information. But with that said, we're there for ongoing support as well. So if you have any questions about what we sent you, or you need a phone call to kind of go over it, or something wasn't clear, or you're looking for something else, we also offer that follow-up. For primary market research, we don't actually, we just don't absolutely have the capacity to do this, so we don't actually go out and conduct primary market research for people. But we'll help you with sort of developing a plan. So if you're trying to decide whether it's best to create a survey or to have conversations with people, or who you should have conversations with, we'll sort of go through and develop that plan with you. Yeah?
Do you guys just work with entrepreneurs only, or do you work with, let's say, for example, all of us here now decide to come together and form an organization? Do you work just with just an entrepreneur, or you're also ready to work with a group of people that like Well, say for
Okay.
example, yep. Say for example, the men of this group or the church as a whole decides to come to you guys for an assistance. Do you do that? Then that's one. Then two, the secondary market. Regarding the secondary option you talked about, is it also possible to avail an entrepreneur the access to the components where you put these figures from, so that one can go in there as well, rather than always bugging you guys, do this, assist me with this. I can go in there myself and sit down and crunch the numbers myself.
Okay. Yeah. So to answer the first question, what I would probably do, so if you came to me with that question, I would probably, take my business link hat off and put my momentum hat on. And so momentum actually has business link's kind of more set up to deal one-on-one with people and sort of in an ongoing but as needed basis. So there's a part of momentum called Thrive, and Thrive is all about local community economic development, right? And so Thrive works a lot with individuals, so community associations, churches, groups that want to come together and really improve the economic development within their community. So if you were to come to me with that question, say all of you had an idea and you wanted to come together and make it a reality, I would probably bring in Thrive for that, and myself and my colleague Phil would sort of have like a brainstorming conversation with everyone. Thrive. Thrive, like THRIVE. So that's kind of the answer to your first question. The answer to your second question, so because the databases that we access are through the Canada Business Network, we're not able to give out our credentials for them because we pay like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to access them, and as part of our licensing agreement, it needs to be us who's pulling information from them. So we can't give out any of the credentials to the databases, but you're welcome to come to us like as many times as you need. Basically to get the information. Any other questions about the market research part? All good? Yeah?
In the previous slide, you had mentioned having conversations with individuals as a means to collect that information, right? But what other means, because on a high level, we've mentioned market research, right? But when you say conversations, say I wanted to have discussions with these individuals, would I then do like a Facebook survey, or would I, just how would I get access to the individuals that I want to do the primary market research with?
Oh, okay.
On a larger scale as well. I mean, it depends on the business format, of course, but say you need to talk to 100 people or whatever to get, and how much data is sufficient before you feel you can make the right type of decisions? Because should I talk to one person or 1,000 people, right?
Yeah, so that's a question I get a lot. It really, it's so individual specific, right? Like sometimes I'll just try and set realistic goals with people. So I'll say, okay, depending on their customer base, I'll say, okay, try and go out and, try and talk to just like 50 people, right? Or try and get 50 responses. But it really depends on how many people they're looking to serve anyways, right? Like if your market is only 100, then 50 people is 50% of that, which is huge, right? Whereas if your market is, 1,000, then 50 of 1,000 is a far less percentage. So then maybe you're looking for more than that. So it depends, and it also depends too on what other information you have to support your business and back it up outside of that secondary research. A lot of businesses, to be honest, they don't engage in surveys, and they will have just already made connections through networking in their field, and the fact that they've been through it for 20 years. And that's fine too sometimes. It'll depend a lot too, maybe Juliet can speak to this, on whether you're looking for financing, because sometimes the bank, of course, will have very specific certain standards to which they want the business plan to be, right? And so if you're looking for financing from a financing institution, then you might have you might have more of a format that you need to follow for completing all these things than if you're just doing it for your own sort of benefit. So if you're not looking for financing and you're just doing it for your own benefit, then it's really whatever you're comfortable with, right? So as long as you feel like you have enough information to make these informed decisions and you've kind of checked yourself, so is this an assumption or is this something that, you know, I've been told by my market, then whatever is fine, right? So usually when I have conversations, I guess to give you a bit more of a concrete example, it lands somewhere between 30 and 100, but I mean, there are, of course, exceptions on either side of that too. Yeah. So these are just some of the common components of the business plan. So if we can scroll forward. What I'd really encourage people to do is find a good template for a business plan. So I've just linked to two here. One is BDC's. So BDC, of course, has a business plan template on their website that you can use. Futurepreneur has an interactive business plan writer that you can use, so it's all online, and it goes through and asks you all the questions, and then at the end of that, you can then export it, and it formats it for you. I would encourage, if you're looking for financing from a specific institution, check and see if they have a template. Use the template that they've created for you, because then you know that if you've answered all the questions in their business plan, you've likely answered all the questions that they're looking for answers to when they're evaluating you as a potential client. Yeah?
Yeah, so the question I want to ask is, so for those two, you said they are interactive. Futurepreneur is an interactive plan. So my idea of interaction would be, if I get stuck somewhere, I can call them, because there was one template I paid for the whole year I was using, but I couldn't get anyone on the other side to help me out. So so the first question would be, it's Futurepreneur, that kind of interactive business plan where you can call them, they can provide online support. Then the second question would be, does Business Link help in that direction as well?
Yeah. So to answer the first question, Futurepreneur, they don't have a lot of like support. They have a lot of mentorship for people, like ongoing mentorship for people who are, you know, maybe applying for financing for them or who are going through a program with them. What they mean by interactive, really, though, is just that it's prompting you, right? So there's questions that come up in their online form to sort of make your answers really specific to what they're looking for, but there's not really a human component of it there. I would say that if you're not engaging with Futurepreneur in any other way other than using their online template, you might have more support through calling Business Link, which sort of bleeds into the second component of your question, right? So Business Link does help with business plans. We will, if you say you half finish a business plan and you get stuck, you can send it to us, we'll review it, we'll look at what you have, we'll sort of provide some guidance to where you should go from there. Where we draw the line, though, is we don't write business plans for people. So it has to be your kind of initiative and effort, and then we'll kind of take a look at that as you go through and guide you and provide additional resources as you need. Yeah. And then, good. So that's sort of a brief introduction to the business plan. Before we talk about actually registering the business, any questions about that? No? Okay, we can move on. When you're registering the business, of course, you're choosing your business structure, naming and registering your business, getting your licenses and permits, looking into your business number, and we'll talk a little bit about insurance. So all these really exciting topics. If we can scroll. Thank you. So we'll talk first about the provincial component of it. So for those of us who have started a business, were you a sole proprietorship? Were you incorporated? Operating as an individual? How about yourself? Did you incorporate when you started a business? You didn't incorporate. Okay. So you've incorporated for your second business. Okay. Did anyone else go through the process of incorporating? You did as well? And how did you find the process?
It's straightforward. It depends on what you want. If you don't want a lawyer to go through it with you, you can easily do it online.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But depending on how intricate or how you want to structure your organization,
Yeah.
if you want, I have to go for something that's like a holding organization, carrying on some other work. So I needed the lawyer to sit with me and work
Okay.
certain things out. But if you want something just so simple and straightforward, it's so simple doing it online.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So what made you decide to be a corporation instead of a sole proprietor?
When you're a sole proprietorship, you bear all the benefits is yours and you bear all the loss as well. But if you are a registered corporation, it's an entity of its own. So say tomorrow you decide to do another Trump, you still are covered. The company can go down and you're still standing. But if you're simply a sole proprietorship, you still get the loss.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so that's, it's one of sort of the primary considerations, right, that people make is that there's sort of, with a corporation, you're creating this separate legal entity. So there's a little bit more personal protection for you, right? And so if, say you're a food making business and your food makes someone sick and someone decides to sue your business, hopefully not, but say that situation arises, right? There's a little bit more protection for your personal assets. So they have access to the assets of the business, but not necessarily directly your personal assets. So liability is one reason that a lot of people decide to incorporate. And the other reason is taxation, right? Because if you're a sole proprietor, all the money comes, of course, onto your personal tax return. It's all taxed at the personal income tax rate. There's a lot less flexibility there. Whereas with a corporation, all the money comes into the corporation, and then you're withdrawing a salary out of that corporation. So more flexibility in terms of taxation. Some people will set specific limits, and of course it depends on your business. You'll of course want to talk to an accountant. It sounds like we have someone quite well versed in it in the room. But I've heard people throw anywhere from, you know, if you're making over 30,000 or if you're making over 50,000, it's beneficial to incorporate those sorts of things. So just really something if you're kind of getting to that point that you investigate with an accountant what's most beneficial to you. And then partnership is sort of the other option there. So a partnership would be if two sole proprietors are engaged in business together, and then that would just involve declaring that partnership. So we can scroll. When you're incorporating or registering any of these forms of business, it's all done through a registry office, or it sounds like you did it through an online registry office. Is that right? Yeah. So I just put a link there if you're looking to find a registry office. There's a list of all of them in Calgary there. They'll register your business at the provincial level. So when we're starting a business, right, we need to think about all three levels of government, so municipal, provincial, and federal, right? And so most people will actually start at the provincial level where they're actually, because that's where most people will start sort of register the legal entity of their business. There's also the option to incorporate federally, but it's not something that a lot of businesses will do. So when you go to, so think about you've gone into the registry office, what are some of the things you can do? Well, one of the things you can do is register a trade name. So this is done if you're a sole proprietor and you're operating under a business name that's not just your first and last name. Or say you registered a corporation, but you registered it with a number, but you don't want to call yourself 12345 Alberta Limited. You want to call yourself a business name that's better recognized. Then you can register a trade name and attach it to that corporation. So to go through this process, there's just a link there if you want to do a pre-search just to see if any other business is already using that name in Alberta, because if so, they won't let you register it. And then you'd fill out it's just a simple sort of 2-page form, a declaration of trade name form. Now, it sounds like you already know quite a bit about business, so this might be sort of an obvious thing for you. But for a lot of people who are just sort of being introduced to the idea of entrepreneurship, there's a little bit of confusion around a trade name versus a trademark. right? So a trade name is the operating name of the business, right? So you go to the registry office, you register that trade name, you can use it as sort of the public-facing name for your business. Whereas a trademark sort of has a lot more clout legally, right? So a trademark is something that you register with the Canadian Intellectual Property Office. It's something that's legally defined as being yours, and it's far more protected. A trademark does have a long application process. You need to go through a process where you're proving that you're already using it in the public, that it's yours. It's a lot more costly than a trade name, and it's done at the federal level as opposed to the provincial level. Trademarking is not something that a lot of new businesses will do. Some businesses will consider it after they've been on operation for a few years, or if they feel like it's legally necessary. But a lot of businesses will go through, the entire business cycle or the entire process, life cycle of their business, and not register a trademark. So when you're starting a business, a trade name is the one that you need to be concerned about, not necessarily the trademark. Partnership, so this is very similar to if you're registering a trade name, you go to the registry office and do this. Of course, the difference being that there's 2 individuals linked to that name as opposed to 1 individual. And we can scroll again. And then the last thing is the corporate name, of course, right? So the corporate name is used if the business, of course, is incorporated, and if you want a name on the corporation instead of a number on the corporation. So if you want a named corporation, you have 2 options. You can start a numbered company and attach trade names to it, or you can register a corporate name instead of the number. And it's a similar process, except for when you go to the registry office, instead of doing a 1-page simple form, it's a little bit more complicated, right? So you may remember there's 3 forms involved, the articles of incorporation, notice of address, and notice of directors. I would say it's about maybe 50-50 in terms of people who do it themselves versus people who go through lawyers. It'll depend, of course, on the complexity of the business, how comfortable you are with the process, that sort of thing. You said you found it quite simple, straightforward, though, to incorporate it? Yeah. So if you have any questions, ask him. Okay, so that's kind of what you need to do at the provincial level. We'll scroll down one more. We'll talk about the municipal level. So most businesses are required to register with the city. There's some professional practices that are exempted. It varies city to city, so you really just need to check with the municipality. If you scroll down one more. Thank you. So this is just a resource for you. The City of Calgary has a really good new business guide. So what you do is you put in the type of business that you have, and it takes you right through to all the permits that you would require from the city. There's usually a lot of approvals. If you have a commercial space, there can be a lot of approvals that you need before you're able to get the business license. If we scroll one more. And then I put this in just because I thought it might be relevant to a lot of people. How many of you would be operating out of your home? Most of us? None of us? Yeah? Yeah. So if you're operating out of your home, you do still need a license with the city. So there's 2 classes. One is if you're if you don't have any employees at the home, if you're not having a constant stream of people in your home, if there's no signage outside or anything like that, then it's just sort of a minor category of business license. Otherwise, if you're having employees in your home, if you have people coming to your home to engage in business with you, there's a little bit more of a process and a few more requirements that you need to go through to be approved by the city. One more. Okay, so now we'll talk about the federal component of it. The Canada Revenue Agency is the organization, of course, you all need to be aware of. So those of us who have already operated businesses, did you register for a business number? Yeah? And yourself as well? Yeah? Okay, so we can scroll down. So what was, maybe then I'll ask, what was your reasoning for registering for a business number? You needed the number. Okay, yeah. And you?
It's actually the same for GST. I mean, for you to be paid, you need the GST number. You get the GST number, you need the business number.
Yeah, Yeah, so if you're incorporated especially, of course, you'll need the business number. A reason why you might not need a business number is if you are a sole proprietor, say, and you are making less than $30,000 a year, then there's not actually a requirement for you to charge GST, unless, of course, say you have say you're being subcontracted by an organization that requires you have a GST number, then you'll need to register anyways. But there are certain situations where you won't need to register. But like I said, if you're incorporated or making more than 30,000, you will need to register. Your business number is kind of like your ID with the Canada Revenue Agency, right? So there's a business number, and then there's all these different accounts that you can get with this business number. There's 4 common ones, of course: GST, HST, which is sales tax, payroll, corporate income tax, and import-export accounts. And if we can scroll one more. Oh, and scroll one more. Thank you. So I just went over this. So you need to collect GST if you're making more than $30,000 a year. And you, of course, you can still choose to collect GST if you're making less than $30,000. So below $30,000, it's voluntary. You decide. One more. So that's kind of the registration component of it, right? So the things you need to do at the provincial, the municipal, and the federal level. Now we'll just quickly talk about insurance. So when you ran businesses, did you have insurance? No? You have insurance? What kind of insurance do you have?
It was, what was it? Because the business was food, it had to do with food, so I had to do bonding.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. So, sorry, I have a typo in here. Looking into insurance, of course, really, really important to protect you from any losses that you might incur through the business, or say there's an accident in your business or something like that. Risk will depend, of course, on industry and your comfort level with risk. I would encourage you to check out the Insurance Bureau of Canada. They have lots and lots of resources, like educational resources about things to consider when you're looking into business insurance. And then if you scroll down one more. These are just some common types of business insurance. So ones to do with your business would be property insurance, contents insurance, interruption insurance, and vehicle insurance. But then there's also a sort of a separate category of business insurance, which is liability insurance. And so the different things that you can be insured for there. There's general liability, product liability. So say you make a product and it malfunctions, having insurance for that. Professional liability and cyber liability as well. And then one more. So any questions before I move on about any of the registration or insurance? Yep.
So I have a question about registration. I know someone talked about registering a holding company, and then such that you can have other sub-businesses from different components of the market. So that's one of the things I had some issues with. For instance, I was maybe interested in apparel market and develop a business plan, almost got registered, but then I thought, I need a bigger holding company that might want to do maybe something like inspection services, else facility management. So I wanted to find out, does Business Link provide such support, how to match those different segments, components of the market together, and then have a holding company and then put the other ones in it?
Yeah, so we sort of, where our limit is we just really have to be careful that we're not offering legal advice because of course we're not lawyers, right? So we can tell you about sort of how all those things fit together, what the different structures are, what some of the implications of those structures are, and what your options are. But at the end of the day, we can't tell you you should do this. So there's a very fine line in there with sort of the information we're allowed to provide. What our process would probably be is to talk to you about all of your options, so the different structures that you could do and what sort of the implications are, and then refer you to our Ask an Expert program where we have the lawyer come in. And then on the Wednesday afternoon session, they would be able to provide you that sort of more of an advisory role to you. Yeah. So that would be our process there. Any other questions?
The liability on insurance, you made mention of cyber. Can you do a little bit of that so that we can have a better understanding of the liability on the cyber side of
Sure. So cyber liability being, of course, any activities that you conduct online. Because there's different, I'm not familiar with all the legislation, but there's different laws, of course, that apply online as opposed to in person. And so if you're conducting certain activities online and say you have a bunch of information, private information from your clients online, and your site gets hacked or something like that, right? So then your business is then at risk of being sued because you release, say, a lot of personal information from for your customers. So liability insurance for that would, like as an example, protect you against or cover you for being sued by your clients whose personal information you say released from your website or something like that. Any other questions? Nope? Okay. So if we scroll down, so I'll just kind of recap like up till now where we should be at. So we've kind of had this conversation about, what makes an entrepreneur, what are some of the characteristics of an entrepreneur, what are some of the things inside ourselves that have made us successful entrepreneurs. We've talked about ideation, so what's a good business idea, how do we prove that's a good business idea, what are some of the market research things we should be considering. Then we've gone into, okay, now we've decided on the business, we've done our market research, we're writing our business plan, we've gone through all the things you need to do to register your business. So now you're registered and you're ready to go. So now we're at sort of that final launch phase, right? After you've launched the business, so legally you would have launched the business, of course, once you've registered at the provincial, the municipal, and the federal level. Just a couple of things that I'd encourage you to keep in mind is just always refer back to the business plan. Consider it a working document, right? So you can update it, you can change it, review it, think, okay, does this still make sense? What else am I learning? What do I need to add to the business? Just a note, there's all these sort of logistical things that go into running a business, right? So and the thing is, if you're a one-person business, sometimes you get stuck doing everything, right? So just make sure you find systems that work for you. So for example, if you're using your vehicle in your business, in your corporation, you need to keep a vehicle log that records all of the information for your mileage and things. So just really think about how are those things going to be documented in a way that's not too strenuous for you and that works for you, so at the end of the year, if you have someone doing your corporate taxes, you can hand that off and it's nice and easy for them to access that information, right? Find a bookkeeping system that works for you. So if you haven't hired, did you do your own bookkeeping? No? You had a bookkeeper? Okay, and what about yourself? Hired a bookkeeper? You did your own, okay, and so did you use software or how did you keep track of it all?
And somewhere close to tax season, I get on that email account and then So yeah, then when it's closer, it's about December, January, then I go to that address and I just spend a bit of time putting those on a spreadsheet, then I send it to my accountant.
Okay, yeah, and does that work? It works for you, works for your accountant?
Yeah, so far, so he hasn't complained too much of it.
Okay, yeah. And what about yourself? Do you have a bookkeeping system that you use or software? Or?
My husband does bookkeeping.
Okay.
The accountant does the remaining stuff. We have an accountant. He does most of the bookkeeping.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's just kind of a discussion to have with yourself, right? Make sure you find a system that works for you. Sometimes I've heard horror stories from accountants where people will bring them just like a stack of crumpled up receipts at the end of the year, and it takes them ages to go through it. So making sure you're on top of all those things. Remember to file your annual returns. So that's something, I get a lot of calls from people who say, oh, I just got this letter that my corporation's being dissolved and I have no idea why they dissolved it. So important thing to remember, you have an annual return that you need to file every year if you're a corporation. If you don't file it 2 years, it's just I think there might be a $50 charge associated with it, and it just goes to the province updating them on your corporation. If you don't file it for 2 years in a row, they dissolve the corporation. So just really important to remember to file that. You'll get a notice, like a warning that'll say, heads up, you haven't filed your annual return, and then you can be like, oh, thanks for the reminder, I have to do that. But that's really important. Otherwise, your corporation, you'll wake up one morning and you'll find that it's no longer in existence. And just sort of final piece, make sure that you're reaching out for help. So if you scroll down, so I've just put a few helpful resources here. One so I know a lot of you are familiar with Momentum already, but for those of you who are starting or who aren't familiar with Momentum, I just wanted to give you as well. I just brought a few of these. I'll keep one so I can reference it while I'm talking. It's just information about the business development programs that Momentum offers. So Momentum offers 5 different business development programs. They're all free. They're anywhere from 15 hours to 6 months long. So they're all startup programs. The self-employment program you're only eligible for it if you're on EI. So it might not be applicable to everyone. But there is the ABCs of Small Business is a longer program. It's 4 months long. And then the Women's Venture program as well. For any women who are interested in starting a business, that's 6 months long. It's in the evenings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It can be a really good way to both reach out to help and have mentorship and support through the process, but also to have friends who are in the same situation, right? So all of the cohorts of our programs, the people in the programs become very good friends and very good supports for each other, and sometimes even customers for each other, right? So if I believe that the next cohorts are starting at the end of September for any of the longer programs, and then the 15 and the 30-hour programs we run more often. We run them 5 times a year. So if these are of interest to anyone, I would encourage you to call Momentum and register for one of the Exploring Entrepreneurship sessions, which just sort of goes into more detail about our programs, and we hand out the application form and all those things. So that's kind of there's sort of 2 different streams of the work that Momentum does. So these are sort of the business development programs that are within the business development department. And then there's also this other brand of work which I spoke to earlier, that's Thrive, and that's sort of more work that's done out in the community with groups. So I can leave this one here in case anyone who didn't attend today ever wants information. And then if we scroll down, we're almost through here. So other resources that I would encourage you to tap into, if you have any entrepreneurial network, entrepreneurial friends, people who are interested in entrepreneurship, really good to surround yourself with those people, right? As we talked about, they'll lift you up, offer you support, guidance, mentorship. Your personal network, so anyone that you're personally close to who can support you in your business. Futurepreneur can be a resource for you. I didn't put it up here, but Alberta Women Entrepreneurs also offers programs for female entrepreneurs. Banks do have certain services, so I'm sure Juliet can talk about the services that BDC is able to offer. ATV also has an entrepreneurship center on 17th Southwest, and they offer lots of programming, usually at lunchtime during the week, but it's all free. They have business advisors there who can sit with you one-on-one, help you go through some of the things that your business plan might be missing, for example, or that you can improve on. The library does have specifically business databases. I don't think, they used to have a business librarian who could sit with you and help you. I'm not sure if she's still there though, so you'll have to just ask, but even if she's not still there, I do know that the databases are still there, so you can kind of navigate them yourself. And of course, any industry-specific organizations. So depending on what your industry you're in, they'll often have an association relevant to that industry, which you can tap into for more industry support and knowledge. And so this is just information about Business Link. I gave you the postcards, so you have all our information there as well. Before I pass it off to Juliet, are there any questions or anything else you want to go over about sort of the process? Yeah.
I just want to say something about Momentum.
Sure.
I went to Momentum. I participated. So for anyone here that really wants to run their business for me, it's like a mini MBA. You don't pay for it. The government pays for it. All you need to do is to qualify for it. So if you go, I don't know, she might tell us about the criteria, but if you qualify for it, if you really want to do your business and you want to learn most of these things she has said, the best thing is to apply, and if they take you, the 6 months program. I did the 6 months program, and it was quite useful. Yeah.
Good. Did you do the Women's Venture program or which program?
The Momentum Women, yeah, the
Women's Venture program.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Women's Venture program, yeah.
Oh, well, that's great. We have a live advocate here for Momentum, so that's nice too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't, in terms of the criteria for Momentum, there's no sort of strict hardline criteria, like you have to meet these specific things before we'll accept. We're just really looking to take people who either have some sort of barrier to employment, or who are maybe a bit stuck and could use the support. A lot of new Canadians will take if they haven't yet grown their network and they kind of need a classroom setting. So we just in terms of our criteria, we try and accept people who need the programs most. So if you come in and you say you want to be in one of the programs, and your family income is $300,000 a year, and you've been here your whole life, and you have a support network of family and friends, and you can go to the bank for financing and all these things, then probably not a fit. Right? But if we can identify some sort of need in you, then we'll generally accept. And then the other component of it, of course, is that you have a viable business. So if your business needs work, what they'll usually do actually is send them to me directly, because I can work with people one-on-one, like outside of a program setting, and I'll work with people to develop their idea a little bit more so that they can then apply at a later date. Yeah. Anything else?
I think it's just on the criteria for accepting people into the Momentum program, because you could have unemployment, you have an income, but you still want to have a business by the side, and you can get to the bank look at employment, can give you loan, but the knowledge that you get from attending the training and the resources that you have, I don't think that's something that you can actually get elsewhere. So that's the component. That's the component I'm looking at. So for example, if I'm interested in attending the program, and then Momentum now decides to look at my payroll or income and all that, I will be disqualified. But that's not the. So I think I'm trying to say, there might be other folks who are very much interested in doing businesses aside from their paid employment. So how would Business Link look at those folks? Are they like exceptions, or would they take them and all that?
For most of the programs with Momentum, there is an expectation that the business is something that you want to do full-time. So it's your full-time livelihood. And of course, that's as a community economic development organization, we're trying to have the most community impact as possible, right? So if we're putting people through a 6-month program, and it's, so that they can operate a business, 10 hours a week or something like that, and just gain a little bit more income, that's not having as much of an impact as someone who wasn't previously working maybe, or was staying at home, or needed some accommodation to be able to work, and we put them through this program, and now they have a full-time business, right? So that is something we consider, and we don't generally accept businesses that have an intention right away to be kind of like a part-time business. That would be something that would be more appropriate to talk to me kind of like with my Business Link hat on, right? Yeah. Anything else? Great. Well, if you have any, I'll grab a few of my cards here so that you have my personal phone number and email. And then if you have any kind of follow-up questions, or you want to meet, or have any other needs, you're welcome to send me an email. And then, actually, before I dig these out, because they're way down there, maybe shall I pass it off to Juliet to talk about the financing component? Okay.
So we'll just wait for my slides to be set up. Sorry I was a little late. It's called BDC presentation. Did you find it? BDC presentation. BDC presentation is the name. So I have half an hour? Yeah. Okay. Okay. While they're setting up the slides, I just wanted to make a short introduction about myself. My name is Juliet Cruz. I'm a senior account manager at the Business Development Bank of Canada. So basically, I've been with the bank for 4 years, and I've been in the financial services industry for over 20 years. Every day, I've never been a business owner myself, but every day I see businesses, all kinds of different businesses, talk to business owners, and that's what we do at BDC. So for my presentation, I'm just going to go over some basic information about BDC. The slides, I'm not going to go over a lot of them because it's meant for about 45 an hour presentation, and I do really want you to be able to ask questions in terms of the financing your business. So just next slide. Okay, so for the agenda, I'll just go over who we are, why we exist, and what we do. Next slide. So we are Canada's development bank. We are the only bank that's dedicated to entrepreneurs. So you have all the chartered banks, RBC, Scotiabank, ATB, all of them, they do a lot of work for businesses, but they have other personal banking, other types of mortgages, residential, everything that like in the financial services, investments and things like that. But BDC is dedicated. So we have consultants that would actually work with the business owners, coach them through the process, and what it's meant to be is to help them grow and be more profitable. We are where entrepreneurs need us to be. There's about 42,000 clients we have right now. We are across Canada, about 110 business centers. In Calgary, we have 4 business branches. So there's one downtown, and you probably see it on 7th Avenue along the C train route. And then there's one here in the Northeast on 32nd and 19th Avenue, 19th Street, 32nd Avenue, 19th Street. And then we have 2 South offices, which is Calgary South and Calgary Southeast. Both are located right now on the corner of Glenmore Trail and McLeod, but one of the branches will move to the Quarry Park area next year. So BDC has about 2,100 employees. And this is like a slide that has the different industries that we are involved with. So 23% of our clients are in the manufacturing sector, 11% are in retail, 9% in construction. So we have businesses in transportation, tourism, commercial properties, wholesale trade, and the rest of the other industries, 21%. So what kind of industries are you in? Like there's a couple of business owners in here. Like which sector is your business in? Gentleman at the back. Others. And the others? Okay, next slide. So our clients, they employ 710,000 Canadians, and they generate about 235 billion in profits, in annual revenues, and 18% of our clients are exporters. So if you have some export outside of Canada when you're selling your products, we have our sister company as well, Export Development Corporation, that work with us for those other activities. Okay, we don't have to go through that, not that one, and why we exist. So in Canada, there's about 99.7% are small and medium-sized businesses. So it's a big sector that we work with. And the way that we define the small and medium-sized businesses is that when you have 1 to 99 employees, and then, and that's basically the main area that we work with. Okay. So this one is a slide of one of our clients. Behind every small business, there's an entrepreneur with a dream. So basically, businesses start with a dream. And then small and medium-sized businesses, they play a vital role in our economy. They basically employ 90% of the people in the country, and 95% private sector jobs are created by small and medium-sized businesses. And 52% of our gross domestic product is contributed by SMEs. Okay? So what we do, as I mentioned, we do financing, capital, advisory services. Next slide. Financing. So I think this is one area of interest that a lot of people have. When you go into business, you need capital. When you don't have enough of your own money, then you need to borrow money. And what are the things? So I think we'll just stop the slide in here because I wanted to talk more about how to obtain financing. I used to work at a chartered bank. Most chartered banks, they would give a startup business up to 20,000 or 25,000 to start up your business. With BDC, we would do up to a maximum of 150,000 for new businesses. And our criteria for that is basically you need to have your own money. So for every dollar that you have saved to put into your business, we can lend you up to 3 times of that money. So we work with a 3:1 debt to equity. So your equity is your own money, and the debt that you obtain from us is the 3 times of that. So we have a different offering for new businesses. We tend to take more risks. And as I mentioned earlier, that's what we do day in and day out, basically to find ways to help businesses grow. Any of your financing needs, from, as I mentioned earlier, the working capital, that's usually what a lot of people need when they start a business. The equipment, when you do your when you need to buy your trucks, your machines, we would finance up to 125% of that piece of equipment. A lot of people are asking us, why are you putting money more than the cost of the machines? Well, when you buy a machine, you pay taxes on it. There is shipping cost if it's coming from somewhere else. Day one that you bring your equipment to your business, it's not working for you right away. You need to install. You need to train the people that use it. So those are like soft costs that you need to get money for. So we would provide all of that, and then different ways that we would structure the financing over 6 years maximum. For commercial real estate, it could be up to 25 years. And then we amortize that loan. And our rates, one of the other things that people ask is, what is your interest rates? So right now we have prime. And prime basically, and I can't remember, is it 3.2? Because there's been 2 increases. And our rate is 2% over that. So our base rate basically is 3.5. So we work with the variance. So depending on what we see as the risk in your business, then we will add up. So our interest rates are higher normally than what the chartered banks offer. But one of the things that differentiates us is that when you need the cash flow, when you need the money, then you don't necessarily have it, and we would take more risk and help you with it. There's a bunch of questions about the business plan. What do we look at? So, yes. It's actually prime plus 2.05. We're a little bit higher. So we start at 5.05. And the reason for that is that we take higher amounts of risk. So if you go to the bank, for example, as I mentioned, when you're in a new business and you don't have history, you haven't proven your ability to make money, then you can hardly get a loan. And I don't know if you have experience going to a bank, you have a business idea, and you need money for working capital or for your equipment or for other things that you need for your business. And did you get financing at all? So that's the biggest question. Any questions in terms of like, yeah, I was talking earlier about the business plan on what are requirements. For startup businesses, we need a business plan with projections for at least 3 years. We don't have a specific template that you need to use. It's basically, you can use our template on the website on bdc.ca, but there are different banks that have different types of templates as well. Depends on what you prefer, what you're comfortable with, then you can use those. But the necessary ingredients that we're looking for is that, you need to specify what your business is about, what you do, how do you make money, how do you generate revenues, what is your marketing strategies, how do you implement, who are the people that are going to run the business, what kind of experience do these people have. And then from there, we will be looking at your projections. So at least for the next 3 years, when you start your business, and we want your assumptions. So if you go into a retail product, for example, how many units are you selling and at what price? What are your costs? And then what is your bottom line? We evaluate your proposal in terms of, does this make sense? Does this make money? Because what's important is for you to be able to cover all of your costs and, of course, pay your loans. So any questions?
Here decide to come together to form an organization, and we see a commercial property that we think is viable, and we come down to you guys with all our projection and all the assumptions, and we lay it down there. And are you still going to look at us individually, or are you going to consider us as a group? Because the organization at that point in time has no history, but individually we all have history. And if you're looking at us at that point in time, i.e. construct commercial property, do you have a moratorium period where interest is not capitalized for us at that point in time until probably maybe the property is up and running? You know, for instance, assuming you want to build, the first 9 months, your money is down there and you don't have access to the commercial property at that point in time, assuming it's going to take 9 months to complete the construction. So my question is in twofold. How do you treat a gathering, association of people like us here now that are just starting off? The organization has no history. Individually, we do. Then secondly, commercial property, we are going into it. Is there a moratorium period, or will the interest kick in immediately as soon as we start constructing? Thank you.
Okay, so commercial real estate financing. So there's a couple of two different questions that we would ask. Is this commercial property owner occupied, or is this going to be rented out? So that's like considered a supplier of premises. So in that case, there is such a thing like how much loan can you get, right? Like the loan to value ratio. Typically, for a supplier of premises, it is probably a very low loan to value, maybe 50%. So you have the real estate, and the reason for that is the risk that we look at. If it's owner occupied, you have your business, you have a manufacturing operation, and you're buying your own space, that's different, because we know that we evaluate based on the manufacturing operation that's currently going to happen. Even if it's a startup, we would still do maybe a higher loan to value. Typically for owner occupied, we would do about 80–85% of the property. So you need to find 15 to 20% of the down payment. In some cases, very exceptional cases, we would go as high as 90–95% or even 100%. And these are like for businesses that have been there, have proven their capability, the management is very strong, their market is there, and they have equity in the business. So even like 100%. So let's go back to the supplier of premises, which is like, you know, a group of people getting together. So the way that we would evaluate is that what kind of tenants you're going to have. So there are some tenants we call AAA rated tenants. And these are like probably the Tim Hortons, a medical practice. Those are the types of businesses that are like, you know, considered high up there because they have cash flow, they can pay the rent, they won't get out of business. Their offering is something that's accepted by many people. So that's one question. Because that's the source of the repayment, right? Whatever is the rent income will be the one that goes towards the loan. In terms of evaluating the owners, we will look at your management capability, your experience, your the way that how you can, you know, market that particular property to other tenants and stuff like that. We would consider your personal net worth. So we have the real estate property, but one thing about BDC is that we never attach any of your personal assets to your business loan. So we will not ask for a second mortgage on your house. We will ask for a personal guarantee if your business is incorporated, and that's like pretty standard. When your business is incorporated, it's considered to be separate entity from yourself. And when the business goes down and without the personal guarantee, then we cannot run after you personally, right? So the reason for that is like, we believe in your business, we want you to believe in your business as well, right? And that's the whole idea of the personal guarantee. So I think the other part of your question. Okay. So one of the things that we pride ourselves upon is the flexibility of our financing. So one type of flexibility is if your business is seasonal, we can make your repayment higher on the let's say you're in construction and summer is your higher revenue months, then we will put higher payments during the summer months and maybe interest only for the winter months. So that's one type of flexibility. The other one is for commercial real estate, the maximum amortization, considering what the real property has a economic life of, say, more than 25 years. A lot of buildings these days, they can go for 40, 50 years. So we will amortize over the maximum of 25 years. When you're still setting up the business or the properties being constructed, you're looking for tenants, you don't pay your loan day one that you get it, right? Like you have the advance for the money, and it can be interest only for the first year. So no principal payments, so that it gives you the flexibility of not worrying about making payments that are higher when you're still looking for your tenants, when you're still doing your construction. And it's basically for brand new businesses as well. If it's a startup, we can do interest only for the first year and give you some time to really find those markets and generate your revenues. Okay. Okay, so these are the financing that we do. A lot is working capital, commercial real estate, buying a new business. So when you go to a chartered bank, when you buy a business, it's considered you're a brand new startup. And the reasoning for that is that if you say you're a school teacher and you decide to buy a restaurant, that's not related at all. So the risk is higher on that regard. With respect to BDC, when you are buying an existing business that has been there, say, 20 years, and you come in as a new business owner, we would evaluate that business that has been there. What's the profitability? Like a big component of our evaluation is based on how that business has performed over the past year. So we can actually give you more money, not just 150,000. So if the business you're buying is 500, you have 150,000, we can finance the rest. Okay. Technology, the banks don't like technology loans. And the reason for that is it's not considered tangible assets, right? Like your computer, you buy it, it's already obsolete the next year. And the same with other technology purchases. But Canada is lagging behind technology advancements. Like when you rank all the nations in the world, we are not on the top there. So what BDC is basically saying is that we want our companies, we want our businesses to be utilizing technology, to be more efficient, to grow. So we would actually finance up to 100% of technology purchases. So your hardware, your software, your internet, your website, things related to information, communication, and technology. So we call that ICT. Market expansion loans, we would do if you're going through other markets, new locations, or new products you're launching. All of our loans are like term loans. You pay, and if you prepay, there's a penalty because we allocate the money to you, and if you prepay it, then you pay extra. But the market expansion is designed so that there's no prepayment penalties on it. It's very flexible. So if you're expanding and then you're successful and you have the money, then you don't need your loan. You can just prepay the loan without penalty. And of course, the startup loans, and then transferring your business. So when you start your business, and I meet a lot of business owners these days that have an exit strategy. So they start their business and they say, you know, in 3 years, I'm going to grow this business and I'm going to be bought out by my competition. And I have one business that actually did that. And these are like 3 women entrepreneurs. They started this business. In 3 years, they were bought out. So there are different ways to transfer your business. You may have, you work in your business until you're 60 or 70 or when you're 50 or 55, and then your transition plan is basically groom one of your employees to be the owner of your business down the road. So there are plans where you start with a 10% share of the business, 25, and then during the transition, you transfer the ownership 100%. Or it could be your children, or it could be, so we finance all that. Like to buy into a share of the business, you will need money. And if you don't have that money, then BDC can come in and provide that financing. Okay? So, why we are different? We're patient, flexible lender, as I mentioned earlier. The chartered banks, for example, their flexibility is not as much as what we would do. I used to work for them for 12 years, so there's a lot of things that business owners need that we cannot. Like, if you don't fit the box, then sorry, we can't help you, basically. So this is just one of our clients, Sharon Bond. Don't know much about her, but she has a cafe that we financed. Next slide. So we have some Aboriginal banking for those businesses that are in that unit. So specifically, there's account managers that only do Aboriginal businesses. Indirect fine, yeah.
So does it necessarily have to be that the person running the business will be an Aboriginal person, or it's a business that had to do with improvement of the Aboriginals community?
The business owner should be an Aboriginal person, or the business is located in the reserve. So those are like the two criteria on that one. Indirect financing, I'm not involved with that, so let's move on. Capital, that's for the larger companies, and you can just... so growth and transition capital, this is when your business is mature and you need a different type of non-traditional financing. So they have a different offering, and it can be structured in different ways and more flexible, and they would do all this: working capital, transferring a business, buying a business as well. Next slide. Venture capital, those are like for more like larger amounts of financing. Advisory services, so what we do here, next slide. Next slide. So it's not just financing that we do. So one of my frustrations when I was a chartered banker, when you give the loan to the business owner, but then, as I mentioned, their expertise might not be in certain areas. So they don't even know how to read their financial statements. You ask them, how much is your revenues? They have no idea how much. What is your cost? What's your bottom line? So we would assign a consultant for that business. And the consultant would be a CPA. They would look at the history of the business, how it's done from prior years. They will put like industry indices on that, and then compare your business to how you do compared to the other businesses in that industry. And then from there, they will give you the tools. So it's not really, you go to school for accounting and stuff like that, because and I don't know, you might have taken some finance and accounting courses. When you sit down, it's all theory. It's all, examples in the book and stuff like that. But the consultant, when they do a coaching on financial management, you will understand the concepts, and they will use it customized to your business. So you know exactly what kind of cost you have. When you're pricing your products, for example, are you making money? Because at the end of the day, if you're not making money, you shouldn't be in business. So, and then they will provide you with the tools. They will create this cash flow projections. They'll be able to, so anytime I ask you, what is your cash needs for the next 3 months? Using that tool, you can basically know, and you know that you need to borrow money, or you're okay, or you have too much surplus and stuff like that. They will show you a tool that will do sensitivity analysis, for example. If, say, you increase your product price by 1%, what will it do to your bottom line? Or if you reduce your costs. Some of our clients, they were like, they just basically integrated all their cell phone plans because they were not paying a lot, like paying attention to how much they're paying for those cellular services. And when they integrated all of that and they talked to one provider, and they found that they can actually save 10% of their total expenses just from the cell phones. So those kinds of analysis makes the business owner more, cognizant of what are the things that I can do so that I can grow my profits better. So, and sometimes I meet business owners that are like, no, we don't want to be profitable because we don't want to pay taxes. So those kinds of businesses, I tell them that's okay if that's your strategy to minimize your taxes, but don't borrow money, because we always look at your cash flow, your business, the way it's growing and the way that it's profitable, because we want you to be able to pay your loans, okay? So those are just some examples. We will help you manage your business, increase your revenues, improve your productivity. So there are like experts in different areas. And one thing that differentiates our advisory services, you meet a lot of people these days that they call themselves consultants, right? And you don't know whether they can deliver or they're good at what they do. But with respect to BDC, there is a guarantee for the work that our consultants are doing, because we vet them. They go through criminal and bankruptcy. They have to prove that they can do the work. And you can't be hired as a consultant by BDC if you cannot prove and if you're not doing good work for the clients. So probably 99% of our clients are very happy with the consultants that they get. Sometimes it's just personality that don't match, and we have other consultants we can bring into the table and replace that consultant. Another thing about the consulting services is that all of the things that you get out of an engagement is specified beforehand. So you know exactly what the deliverables are, and say, for example, during the engagement, you say, this is not really what I was expecting, or I'm not happy with the results, or sometimes the clients have other issues. They become pregnant, they can't continue with the business, or they want to sell the business. So that consulting contract, you can stop at any time. So you're not, some people, when they hire a consultant to help them, it's like a gym membership. Even if they don't go to the gym, even if they're not getting the benefit of that consulting, they continue to pay for that service. So that's not the case with BDC. Our consulting services is meant to help the businesses to grow and to be profitable. And if it's not working, then we just stop it, and you don't have to pay for that component.
Or it sort of complements. So for example, I walk up to BBC now, I need capital to start a business, and would BBC provide the consulting aspect, or if they do provide, would that be an additional cost to me?
Yes,
or?
there is cost to consulting. It's not free. So depending on what it is that you need. So there are certain solutions to your business. Like for small businesses, it's about $7,500. And it encompasses one is financial management. All of the solutions were priced at 7,500. So it can be a strategic planning, it can be human resources, because like human resources is a tricky issue. If you're, say, less than 20 employees, you don't need a full-time human resources specialist to help you. But when you don't want that headache with the people. So what the human resources consultant would do is help you put together your manual. What are your hiring policies? What are your firing policies? What kind of performance evaluations you want? They will coach you in terms of what's required by law, because it can be a nightmare. I had a client where there was an employee that wasn't performing, and he was planning to fire this employee. And the employee got a hold of, like, he had an inkling, I'm going to get fired, right? So what he did, he hurt himself in the business. And so now the business owner is exposed to liabilities. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't, like, you know, if he gets sued, he can't afford to pay the legal fees and stuff like that. So if you know what your limits are, what are your policies, and what are, like, you know, within the law, then you don't have that problem, right? Like, fortunately, that business owner was able to talk to the Department of Labor, and but he had so many sleepless nights. He had lost a lot of hours because he didn't understand. He didn't know what to do in that case. So human resources is one, sales and marketing is another, and then leadership. Because sometimes when you start your business and you're by yourself, and then when you grow, you need to hire people, but then you can't let go. You don't know how to delegate, right? Like, what is, so we have coaches that we will provide to businesses and do that for you. So I think that the amount of money that you pay for these consulting services is an investment into your business and into yourself. Like, you get coaching and you get knowledge, and you can use that to grow your business. So, okay. High impact firms, this is more for like really larger and companies that have sales of over 40, 50 million. So, and then accelerating growth for women, we allocated $700 million for women entrepreneurs. So we have a sector that we focus on and help women entrepreneurs, because some of them don't get the benefit of what other, like, men entrepreneurs get, and so they have different needs and they have different like requirements. So we answer to that. Okay, next slide. Oil and gas, which is big in Alberta. A lot of companies are suffering, but we have some programs for them as well. And we had, I think, allocated 500 million, which is now almost used up for those companies that are hurting. So one of the support that we gave the oil and gas sector, it doesn't mean that they were not doing well. We will not help them. So, and it is not a handout either. If in the past they have demonstrated that they have the capability to run their business, and they have a new strategy, they have a plan to how they can mitigate those. They may have laid off a lot of people, but going forward, they're focusing on, say, diversifying their offering. They're going to different markets. And then, so we still have some support for those types of companies. So that's like one differentiation from the other banks. BDC Small Business Week is coming up in October. So we partnered with the Calgary Chamber of Commerce. And if you go to the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, they have a bunch of different activities and presentations during that week. So I encourage you to go and visit. It is a big event in Calgary during that time. We have free business advice on bdc.ca. So there's a lot of resources. I know Meredith was on her presentation. She pointed out some of the links to the different resources that's available. It's a very extensive like resource for you. So I encourage you to go and visit btc.ca. You can like subscribe to it so that if there's new articles that are coming out or new news reports and stuff like that, then you get it on your email. Okay. And basically insightful knowledge and issues that's impacting entrepreneurs. We do a lot of studies. The investment intentions of Canadian entrepreneurs, for example, those are all available on bdc.ca. So if you're interested to see what kind of diversification, financial performance, those were done a couple of years ago. So maybe there might be some updates on that as well. So what we don't do investments, as I mentioned, guaranteed investment certificates. We don't do grants. So there are grants available, and we do work with the NRC and IRAP. And we have some people we can connect you to, but we don't do that ourselves. So we don't do interest-free loans. We don't do term deposits, no lines of credit, non-commercial loans, or residential loans, and bank accounts and credit cards. So you still need your chartered banks, basically. We are a complementary bank to them. So I have heard some clients, oh, I'm going to transfer all my business from Scotiabank to you. And we go, no, you still need Scotiabank because we don't do those bank accounts, the credit cards and stuff like that. We're not set up for those. Okay. So again, that's our slogan. We are the Bank of Entrepreneurs. You've probably seen our advertising, you know. We are the Bank of Early Risers, and yeah, I think that was like, some of our ads are done really well. Next slide. That's again our advertising, financing, advising, and smarts. Okay. You can see on our website some of the stories. There are some testimonials from our business owners, and you can read some of them, what happened to them and the support they got from BDC. I think I'm over time now. I'm still good? Yeah, and that's my information. I have some business cards if you need some. So you can just distribute that. So any other questions? One last chance for questions. Yes, she raising her hand.
Yeah, I just have one question. So do you people give loans to charity organizations like churches?
No.
Like, no?
No. That's another thing that we don't do.
Okay.
It has to be for commercial purposes, for profit.
Yeah, what about for building, like for properties or mortgage, mortgage.
Mortgage, it's kind of tricky because we're kind of limited. There's a certain percentage of the revenues because your revenues as a church come from donations, right? So I think we would do it, but not, like there's a lot of criteria. So, and I don't know on the top of my head, but there's a percentage in terms of the amount of donations and how much are actually from operations. But I think majority is donations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any
thanks.
other questions? Yeah, we work like the minimum loan you can have is $10,000, and we can do up to 10 million in the branch. And then we would have the corporate finance that would do the higher limits and stuff. So it's a big area. We have this online platform. If your business is over 2 years, you can apply up to 100,000 online. And some of our clients, they say 5 to 7 business days, they have the money in their account. So that's a really good offering for established businesses. Yeah, like there are certain criteria that they would look at, but basically you should have been, generating revenues, because you can be 5 years in your company, but there's no revenues yet. So it has to be something that is actually operating. If you're starting, you go to the branch, yeah. So the online, you go to us, to the business center. You go to me, basically, for startup. The online platform is meant to be more efficient in terms of getting your money, because if you're established and you have good credit history and stuff like that, so.
Follow-up question on that. For you to go to the online platform, was you be banking with BDC, or you couldn't have been banking somewhere else, but you have that 2 years information that is required, and your P&L is looking very good over that 2-year period?
You don't need, yeah. You don't need to be a client of BDC to go online. The online platform is meant for an online application. So you fill out the form, and then somebody would look at it and they'll get back to you. It's a pretty quick process, because sometimes when you go to the branch, when you go to me, we do a lot of due diligence checks. But if we're saying that you have a good credit history, you have established business, then you can utilize the online platform. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for inviting me over, and I hope I was able to share some information that's useful. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we want to thank you for great presentation. Yeah, we're optimistic we can have a good number of audience, but we want to assure you at least you find one of us following up on this. So on behalf of the church business committee, we have the parish pastor here, who I believe really appreciates your coming. We'd just like to present a token to you, Meredith.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we also want to present to Juliet as well. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, that's all we have. Thank you.